Mr. Anderson, I wanted to ask you about an issue that was raised in a letter to you by Chairman DeFazio and other members of this committee about proposed cuts to Amtrak's police force. We received a response from Amtrak to that letter in which your chief administrative officer wrote that cuts to the police force, quote, will not impact the level of security that we provide in stations or on trains. It would seem to me that cuts to a police force, this or any other, by up to 20%, which is our understanding of what is planned, would absolutely impact the ability of that police force to provide protection to those who they are duty-bound to protect. 20% is a pretty significant number. From a common sense point of view, it's hard to imagine that there would be no impact. And I wonder if you could further elaborate, first of all, on that conclusion that there would be no impact on security.
Well, you've got to look at where the labor's deployed, right? So if it's in offices and you have a ratio of one manager for every 7 people that are out working on the railroad, and you look at the geographic dispersion of where people were working, all in rural areas where we weren't getting a lot of policing, what we've actually done, which addresses a number of the issues which I'm incredibly sympathetic to and was involved in the aviation industry in passing federal laws against violence against crew members, we needed many more policemen on our trains. And that's what we've done. The number of riders, much like the Air Marshal Service that TSA uses in aviation, we've morphed the department from a kind of traditional management-heavy organization to an organization that puts a lot of policemen on trains and in station.
Good. That's what I want to specifically ask you about, and let's remember the context. I'm sure you are aware that the United States in the last several years has been experiencing an increase in domestic terrorism. I mean, we've been at risk of terrorism from multiple sources for many years since 9/11, but there is a particularly pernicious new threat that we've seen manifested in shootings in places of worship, in synagogue in Pittsburgh, Poway, against Jewish Americans, against Hispanic Americans at a shopping mall in Texas. It's not just random violence with guns, but violence that is motivated by a specific ideology. Not to be too alarmist, but we have trains running between Washington and New York City, the heart of what some people with anti-government ideologies consider to be the establishment of the United States. I can walk on those trains without a metal detector, which is very different from the situation in airports. What would happen if somebody opened fire on a train with hundreds of people on the Northeast Corridor? How equipped is Amtrak to deal with that situation?
Well, that's actually where we've centralized our forces. So we can get with you with the statistics, but we have dramatically increased the number of policemen riding on our trains, invisible in our stations. That's precisely what we wanted to do.
Can you give me a little bit more granularity on that?
Yeah, we have. I mean, I can pull the data. I've got it in this binder because I anticipated your question. But look, we've also undertaken a really significant hardening of the industrial assets up and down the corridor, from signal huts to server farms and stations. We've done a complete analysis of where those vulnerabilities are. We're taking a fair amount of our national network grant and putting fencing up and down the corridor in the dense areas. we've added, I think our number of train marshal rides is up over 1,000% year on year. So with you all the way on that, we wanted to refocus and reconcentrate our assets in the most dense areas and to get much more coverage of our police officers visible to our employees and customers on our trains.
Thank you. Let's continue that conversation. I yield back.
Be glad to.